Welcome back. You're still watching Good Morning Namibia. Now, Namibian Youth Rosy Schaneck has been appointed as the Commonwealth Youth Council's regional representative for Africa, a role that highlights dedication to fostering collaboration, innovation, and a positive change across the continent. As a passionate advocate for youth engagement, Rosy Schaneck has tirelessly worked to elevate the voices of young people in Namibia and beyond, championing initiatives that address pressing and social issues and promoting sustainable development. We speak to her as she shares more insight on her appointment as well as her plans as the regional representative for Africa. Well, good morning, Rosie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you very much.
How does it feel to be recognized as the Commonwealth Youth Council's regional representative for Africa?
It was a tireless journey, hey, but I am beyond words. I'm speechless. All I can say is I'm here to serve the continent at large.
Amazing. Now, kindly just walk us through your journey, to getting this significant role.
I started off with my journey with being recommended by the Young African Leaders Forum, that is the YALF, where I serve as a country director for Namibia. So I was nominated and then I had to campaign. Amongst various applications that were received, only 48 delegates across the continent were shortlisted for these portfolios. So for the regional representative for Africa, we were 6 contestants and I was duly elected as the representative for Africa.
Amazing. But what inspired you to become a youth leader in Namibia, and how do you plan on representing Africa at the Commonwealth Youth Council?
I'd like to say my inspiration is more of upbringing that was instilled from a younger age. My parents were, my late father was a pastor, so in the modeling and bringing up, there was always things that you're supposed to do, things you're not allowed to do as a pastor's daughter. So that was actually also exemplified by my academic excellence in school. I was a teacher's right hand and a friend to the class. In my primary school, at Okeka's Primary School, I was then honored as the head girl. I then proceeded to Komastura High School, where I finished my grade 8 to 12. I was then also honored as the head girl at the same school. Moving on to tertiary, I started into student leadership, where in my first year I was still trying to find my feet and so forth and so forth. Towards the end, when we went on a school tour, I then got appointed as the logistics officer for the Sociology Society. I served that during my 10 years, during my second year. And then in my third year, I went on to open my own society that was the Music Society at the University of Namibia. And in my final year of studies, I ran for Secretary for Recreation at the Student Representative Council. And I was then awarded as the SRC of the year. I matriculated in COVID. Graduated in COVID, sorry. I graduated in COVID. One of the online attendees, we were one of the unfortunates that could not make it to Safari.
I get you. I get you. That was my year too, yeah.
So yeah, I further went on and I became an ambassador for the UNAM Alumni Association, that is student help. And then later on, I vied for office and I became an executive member of the UNAM Alumni Association. And yeah, later on, I also then vied for a position at the Young African Leaders Initiative, that is Yali Regional Leadership Center, where I am currently still the networking and events coordinator. They are currently busy with campaigns, so the new people, I think, would be taking office in October. So that has been my leadership journey from a young age to now.
Wow. And you're still, leading. Do you sleep at night? As leaders, do you?
I try to.
Amazing. But talk to us about some of the key issues. What do you think are some of the key issues that the African youth is actually facing during these times?
I'd like to highlight 4 main issues. One of them being identity crisis, where we're in a world where a lot of young people don't know who they are as a cultural backbone and a sense of their own identity. We have normalized European culture in our African sense, so now that kind of brings a kind of dispute within yourself, because now there is this Eurocentric approach that wants to take over, but there's also cultural norms that we are to embrace and keep as ourselves. So now we are in the sense, especially people from the ages of 15 to 29, I'm talking about that generation now. So these are the type of issues that they are currently facing. That is the first thing. The next that I'd like to point on is unemployment, high youth unemployment. It's across the continent. You move from East Africa to Central to Northern to down to the South. These are the problems that we're all facing, and this actually also exacerbates other problems that we face today in our common day problems, such as food security, gender-based violence, alcohol and drug substance abuse, all of the likes that has to do with that. The third that I'd like to highlight is gender preference, through the Affirmative Action Act, where the previously disadvantaged are currently being advantaged. So now we're empowering the girl child more, but then we're leaving the boy child behind. So now we're living in a society where there is an imbalance in the genders, where the women, okay, they're thriving, they're doing well, but what happens to the boy child? So are we going to go back again and also now empower the black child as a previously disadvantaged group? So those are the kind of things that we need to look at and address through policies. And the final thing that I'd like to address on is education, access to education amongst all of the African countries, where school-going children are sent to labor, or school-going children, the parents do not have the money to fund and pay for their school fees. So education is still one of the most pressing issues that we need to counter in Africa.
All right. Now, in your new role as the Commonwealth Youth Council's representative for Africa, how do you plan on tackling some of these issues that you just mentioned?
For the identity crisis, I look at cultural heritage and oral traditions. You just bring back that Pan-Africanist ethos and values back into the systems where we teach this, through either apprenticeships of more cultural engagements. And I'm not talking about cultural festivals where you're told to wear your traditional attire and then you go about your day, but this should be something that should be implemented in the daily lives of the African people. In the youth unemployment, we're looking at youth empowerment, we're looking at access to resources, where we tell these people, look, you're unemployed, you're illiterate, try to tackle one thing at a time. Either become a farmer or you decide to go to school, but just find something worthwhile of your time to contribute to the growth of the continent. When we're looking at the gender preference, we're looking at equity. We've empowered the girl child. The boy child was left behind. But how do we bring the boy child up to standard now? And how can we now empower both of them? So that is where you award the competent one. If two of them come and vie for one position, give the position to the one that's most competent. Don't give it to the one that was previously disadvantaged, because now you're disadvantaging the current, which is also going to have future implications for that. And in this conclusion to this is education, where we're trying to look at policies and where school-going children can be subsidized by their governments to at least undergo school from grade 1 to grade 8 or grade 12, depending on the stability of the government in that respective country.
Amazing. What are some of the changes you'd like to bring about?
Some of the changes I'd like to be about, I have worked on my tenure. My tenure in office would be 2 years. So the first year I would be looking at personal well-being and mental health, where we'll be raising education and awareness. Education is the greatest equalizer, and so we just want to bring awareness to the youth of the African continent, where we give them resources at their disposal to say some of them are in the positions they are because they are not exposed as much as others. So we want to bring them this information to their doorsteps to say, please go and do vocational training, please go to education, please, just that empowerment and awareness to them. I actually also want to promote the access of resources, as I've previously said, because resources is opportunities, and opportunities is the greatest exposure. So if I am afforded an opportunity to go and study abroad, I should be able to come back and empower 10 more people in my village. So that is also one of the things that we're looking towards. And then the last would be self-care practices, right? Where we're looking at long-term planning for people that are aged from 15. So if we are to take somebody that's 15 years old now and we empower them to plan long for their futures, right? These are people that we would now be empowering to say, let's assess your strengths, let's assess your passions, and let's see in what direction we could, fuel you into, so that by the time you become of 24, of maturity, you are already exposed, you have the experience. So the innovations and the changes that these young people will bring will be immense. So those are one of the things that I'm looking at in my first year. And then within the second year, I'm looking towards building resilient communities where civil societies, NGOs, and governmental institutions can come together to partner on some projects that will empower the youth. And these are just not things that I want to implement and leave once I'm out of office, but there's a, sorry, these are rather structures that I'd like to stay, that systematic structures that should stay in office, even though I'm not in office anymore, because these are things that would benefit the entire continent in the long run. I'm also looking at inclusivity and safe spaces. There's also always a cry by the differently enabled to say that just because we're disabled, we don't receive enough attention, we don't receive this and this. So we also want to find ways on how we can empower this and you know, just bring them up to a recognition where the society also accepts them as equal beings. Once they step into office, they're always seen as, this one is mute, this one is deaf. And those are the things that we're actually also trying to battle across the African globe. And one of the other things that I'd like to implement is good sustainability, where we have to use what we can use now and then we spare that we don't need now for the future.
Yeah.
There is a great concern where everything is almost sort of depleting, inclusive of all resources when you look at budgets and things. So we want to use office, when we come into office, we want to use budgets in a sustainable manner to ensure that we don't deplete funds and we don't need to unnecessarily spend when it's not necessary.
Yeah.
So those are the type of things that we're looking at. And also advocacy and action, you know, just social justice, human rights.
As long as the youth is involved.
As long as the youth is involved.
Well, Rosy, thank you so much for making time to talk to us this morning.
It's a pleasure.
Congratulations on the new role
Thank
again,
you.
and we wish you all the best with your future endeavors.
Thank you.
All right. Good morning, Namibia continues shortly after this. Don't go anywhere.